Hi, good afternoon. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and our special guest today is City Miami Commissioner Damian Pardo. Thank you very much for coming, Commissioner.
No, Michael, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, you've been in our studio for years. You had a
Yes.
show for many years, and then about 2 years ago, you said, I'm going to run for commission. And we were very encouraged because you always spoke your piece. Right?
Yep.
So you've been in office now how long?
A year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half.
Okay. So let's talk about a recent court ruling,
Yes.
right? Where you and some of your DS classmates up there decided, let's change the election date. Let's put it out another year so we'll all be in sync.
Right.
Right? It would be the national election.
Right.
There'd be a higher turnout, more involvement. People
Right.
were more likely to come out and vote. So that would have been just from November 25 to November 26th.
Correct. 1 year.
2 weeks ago or so, one of the courts said, no, you can't do it. Just a little while ago, a couple hours ago, an appeals court they rendered their opinion. Tell us about that.
Well, I think, we kind of need to start at the very beginning. The whole idea was to introduce some really good reform to really change the political landscape in our city. So the way we did that was, number one, increase voter participation and lower costs in the city of Miami. We would save millions of dollars. Participation would actually go from 10% to around 70%.
Are you saying 10% of people vote? That was it?
That's it.
In the city of Miami?
In the city of Miami.
One of the greatest cities in the country.
Right, between 10 and 14. Right? Versus 65 to 70%. I mean, it's five-fold, six-fold participation.
So explain to people why it would be such a higher rate of participation.
Because since there's a gubernatorial race or a national presidential race, people know there's an election. So they know they're going to need to vote that year. So they're already listening. So when folks come by the door or they run into somebody, they understand, oh, let me make sure I vote for them too. It's kind of like, you're setting the schedule. So people know it's going to happen. When it's on an off year, they have no idea. There's no real awareness around it. There aren't a lot of ads. People are kind of like, oh, I didn't know there was an election. So they don't vote.
So speaking of that, so in a year, come January, it'll be 2026. That's when the 2026 thing really starts pushing very hard, right? And we look forward to it. We're always happy when it arrives here, and not so happy when it leaves. Because if we could do this for 4 straight years, we'd be very happy.
Right.
So you get more participation. It would have been significantly cheaper for the city.
Significantly cheaper, and at the same time, we wanted to put in term limits, which means that you can only serve 8 years. When you're done with your 8 years, you're done. You can't keep coming back. Which right now you can serve 8 years, take 4 off, come back. Like in District 3, we have Frank Corroyo had 8 years, Joe Corroyo had 8 years, and now Frank Corroyo's coming back for another. So it's 24 years of Corroyo in District 3 if he, has that full term coming back. So we're trying to institute those term limits so that the mayor can only serve 8, the commissioner can only serve 8. The maximum you could serve, City of Miami, is 16, unless you ran for a special election. In which case, if you ran for that election and you won, you got to complete the term of the previous commissioner, and you add that.
So one of the things that we learned is people that vote for county commissioners, the last regime was 15 to 30 years was sort of like normal. And everybody, myself included, oh, it'll be terrible to be these new people, but new ideas.
Exactly.
And then also you realize you only have 8 years to get it done.
Exactly.
Right? And so you better work hard at it instead of saying, I'll do it the next term and the term after that.
That's exactly the point. But it was fascinating because when we went down this road, first of all, I worked very closely with the mayor because in the city of Miami, that's the only way. Because of sunshine laws, we have to work through our mayor. And if they're working with us, they're going to communicate and try to find out where there's consensus and kind of move the ball forward.
Explain to people what sunshine law is.
Sunshine means that we cannot speak to another commissioner directly on any business that comes before the commission. So we need our mayor to be that person that can kind of indirectly have conversations and let us know if there's, folks are feeling good or, just a general vibe as to what is happening so that we can proceed. So for me, it basically took a year and a half working on political reform. And the mayor, after many months, I would say 8, 9, 10 months, really was coming on board and I think was very concerned about his legacy, wanted to do some really good things. So one of these is people were interpreting in a very different way. The whole point was to increase voter participation and lower costs. but it was getting spun as, oh, commissioners are giving themselves an extra year. Commissioners are giving themselves $100,000.
And that side was very effective.
Right, because what is it? Always, it's the dog whistle of corruption in the city of Miami. People don't realize that, but it's a manipulation. I mean, voters are largely manipulated with dog whistles that, there may be a grain of truth here or there, but no, the city's not corrupt. The dais isn't corrupt. I'm not corrupt. We're trying to do good, right things for the residents. And somehow that gets spun because why? Because we're changing the political landscape. Of course, there's going to be harsh opposition to what we're trying to do. In this case, Corroyo immediately sued. The former city manager, Trump supporters immediately sued. They found a good avenue. Instead of going directly to our city attorney, another commissioner asked the Florida attorney general to get involved. So DeSantis weighed in on all this. His judges just ruled. So it became completely politicized. At the end of the day, the residents lose because we could have had more people voting immediately. We're going to push it to go to a ballot regardless, right? We want to get this done. So no matter when it happens.
Intentions were good. Let's go over again. So you wanted, the intention was so there'd be more participation. Some things I've heard 5 to 7 times more participation, and it'd be substantially less money in order to do that.
Right.
Right.
But from the get-go, I was kind of threatened. I mean, people that had supported me and people that have influence, whether it be through media or social media, or, they're kind of more of the vocal few in the city, immediately started saying, don't you do this. If you do this, we're going to go after you. It's a war. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I was elected to do this, so I'm going to do this.
And so their objection to it, the other side, not from a legal point, but from the community point, what was their objection to it?
Well, they have candidates running, and they're already supporting candidates. For those candidates, they may be electable in a 10% race, but they may not be electable in a 60% race.
I think I mentioned the other day in South Miami, it was just out in the open.
Yeah.
Right. If they were going to annex another area, they didn't want to do that because they didn't have any influence over there. And in South Miami, it was not unusual for small numbers, 1,500 people, to get elected. And all of a sudden, if another 20,000 people, another 10,000 people come in to vote, the odds of you winning, unless you work that area, are substantially smaller.
Well, remember, before you had other cities that did it. Coral Gables did it. The city of North Miami did it. Lots of cities in Florida did exactly what city of Miami did. So before these rulings, you had 2 pathways. You could either go by ordinance. And why would you go by ordinance? As elected representatives, if we know it's popular, if we know that this is something that the residents want, then we will take that role on if we can bring it faster, right? Versus putting it to a vote, because it's kind of administerial to put it to the vote. If you know that we have over 5,000 petitions asking to move to the general sitting at the city of Miami. They did polling on this. It was well over 60% were in favor of this. So why wouldn't you take that path versus putting it on the ballot if you can do it right now and you have the votes to do it right now? So that was the thinking. Let's do this because we know there's going to be a lot of opposition. We know a lot of people are going to try to blow it up, but it's the right thing to do. And that was the...
Okay. So you've always been an activist, an advocate for people. So tell us about some of the things that you want people to get involved with.
I really want people to start, for example, ask our commission office, get information from the people that are directly working on it, because so oftentimes there are folks out there who they're not serving the residents. They are serving themselves. They either want more say with a commissioner office, or they want to be able to tell them what they want in a park or what they want somewhere else. And then you'll see those dog whistles come up all the time about developers are doing this, or communism, or, and it really is dog whistles. And it's sad as a public elected official to see people led by people that they generally trust, because a regular person's busy. You have family, you have work, and here's this nice person talking to you, and maybe they sit with you in your living room and they're telling you about the horrible developers and development, and people are like, man, traffic is bad, noise is bad. Like, yeah, that's true. And then they end up being manipulated to something that actually is working against their interests. So we've been trying to bring advocacy to the forefront so that people can understand that they really need to pay attention, listen, and engage to get the facts. There are a great example. You can tell if someone is serving the interest or not serving the interest by the terminology they use. If somebody's saying that these elections were canceled, they are not being a good actor. They are not represent. If somebody is saying that the Olympia Theater is being given away, they are not being a good actor. If someone is saying that the city of Miami is killing trees, they're not being a good actor. You know, I don't doubt that the mistake or something might happen with a tree, but by and large, I have worked closely with staff. They care so much about the canopy, and they work so hard to preserve canopy. So what inevitably it does is it just divides people. And think about it this way. I and the city of Miami residents are paying for highly skilled staff. The city of Miami pays outside consultants, some of the best in the country, to work on these issues. And then because two or three people don't feel like they were given the proper, kissing of the ring, or they didn't get what they wanted, they blow it up. And in the end, you paid for that salary, you paid for the consultants, and you allowed it to be blown up because you didn't take the time to just figure out the facts,
So let's go back a little bit to Coral Gables city elections used to be in April.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know why, out of all the months of the year, why April was selected?
No.
It was sort of odd. Right?
It was very odd. Yeah.
Like, holy moly.
It was very odd.
That was changed, right? South Miami was changed.
Yeah.
City of Miami. So you're going to bring it out for a referendum. Hopefully you'll be able to get that done.
Yeah.
Right. And once it's done, it's like, well, why didn't we do that before?
Right.
And I hope that's what happens.
Hopefully. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for too. You often see things like when we first came into office, we started using surveying tools and text surveys and a lot of tools to really try to figure out what the neighborhoods wanted versus just listening to the most vocal people. The interesting thing was when those surveys came back and we broadened the base by opening forums and having broader conversations, those leaders or those activists were furious because they realized that their individual point of view was getting watered down. People weren't agreeing necessarily with what they wanted.
So how do you get the homeowner that's sitting in their house, maybe they're watching a commission meeting up there, and none of the people they know that are activists, they don't know what to do, they don't want to go down there by themselves, and then they have to pay attention. And I get that, all right? But so how do you move somebody from not being real active to like, you should pay attention to this because it's going to matter to you or to your family or to your neighbor?
Little by little, we always use that phrase in our office, little by little. We have agenda meetings before the agenda where we describe at least the highlights, the major points that are coming to the agenda. That gives us an opportunity to hear from residents early so that we know if there's a hot button issue for residents, it's going to affect me on the dais. It's going to affect how much digging we do before we actually get on the dais to make a vote. So it's very important. And then after, we let people know what actually happened after that meeting. The pre-agenda things that we put on Instagram, and our account on Instagram is Damian Pardo D2. And that's really valuable because
it stands for District 2.
That's District 2, exactly. So Damian Pardo D2, super valuable because when I do the agenda highlights, if you care about, for example, the Olympia Theater, or you care about billboards, or you care about political reform, you're going to say, oh man, this is coming up. I want to go speak, or I want to send an online comment, or this is what I'm hearing on social media. Let me talk to the office to find out if it's right.
Lots of people think that it does work. It does work.
It does work.
You don't know what other conversations they're having.
It does work.
So you're there and you're talking to them, and then pretty soon, you found out about another person over here. There.
Well, what's funny is that that vocal minority that really wants to have a stranglehold on all the discussion, and they weaponize media very well also, they don't want to see that big broad base. So what they're always going to say is, oh, everything gets deferred. It's a waste of time. Don't even bother going to commission. No, bother. Please go to commission. We've been all about engagement since we started because that's exactly what it does. It makes those people who are really manipulating and they're playing either for money or for influence or for relevance. It makes them vulnerable in a way because you broaden the opinions and the information.
There's a very popular restaurant in West Kendall. I forget the name of it right now. And so he had a zoning hearing in front of the community council. It's the local zoning board. He wanted to be able to have his cooking things in a certain place. So he went on Instagram. 250 people showed up. Right. Imagine
Wow.
that. So here's this guy. He was just running a restaurant, and he figured out the power of social media and of that connection to be able to get people to show up. So now that's a family now. There's 250 people. I
Yeah.
was there. I was part of this group, and and so the restaurant guy, of course, he's happy,
Yeah.
and the community council people, they are happy that people participate, because if they don't and they don't hear from the neighbors, right, there's nothing to let them see the other side of the issue.
Exactly. There could be a very controversial issue, like in my neighborhood, the park is a controversial issue. Something like a sidewalk for safety is a controversial issue. But what's interesting is there are clearly like good actors, and then there are people that aren't. Usually, the good actors want to meet, they want to sit down. You're not going to see them at every commission meeting giving comments. I mean, that's not. I mean, I've been an activist 35 years. I've probably worked on. That's another thing I asked them. What have you passed? What have you actually passed? I've probably passed about 8 important pieces of legislation over that time. I didn't go to commission. I mean, maybe I spoke before commission 8 times during that whole period, because most of the times I was sitting in the commissioner office working with staff, trying to figure out legislatively. So how can we make this happen? How is this those are the good actors. They're working within the system, trying to sit down, trying to get the right information, trying to make it. That doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. We may not. Like, for example, I obviously didn't agree with the point of view expressed on the other side here, that you couldn't do this by ordinance to give a popular reform that would have brought more people, more representation to the table immediately. I obviously didn't agree with it, but I respect them. And the part I take issue with is that when you disagree with me, to try to hold something over me or have some undue influence or a threat or bullying over just a simple disagreement doesn't work. Quite the opposite. I'm going to continue down that track because I know it's the right thing
Are
to
you
do.
saying that's happening now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So-
Especially on the election reform.
So what's that like for you, an
Yeah.
activist, and you said, okay, I'm going to work and I'm trying to make some changes here and do good things. So what was it like when you figured out, oh, they're trying to bully me?
Yeah, just big disappointment, very big disappointment, because I kind of thought those intentions were shared by most folks. And then over time, I realized that it's really not. That's not really their main mission. Isn't to try to figure out what the broad community or the broader neighborhood wants and try to help the broader. Their main mission is to preserve their point of view at all costs, by the way. They can't compromise. They can't get moved to something else. But that's not the really good actors don't do any of that. And I think that's how you can tell. They don't use the language. They don't go out saying this really sensationalistic stuff about corruption and I mean, because that's just not true. I mean, having worked at the city now over a year and a half, most people there, it's a job and they want to do right by the residents and they're trying their best. They have great degrees, certifications. That's what they do. They're engineers, they're planners. They're coming to the table to make a better place for all of us. And yet that all gets cast under this like corruption. Now I'm corrupt because I worked with the mayor on something and it's unbelievable. And the mayor had a big issue with the governor, so this whole election issue just got sucked into that politicization where we all miss out because we could have been voting much bigger numbers, bigger representation, and some of the folks who can get elected in that 10% will never get. And by the way, they're the most egregious. They're the ones that people talk about the most. Like, oh, like in Commissioner Carollo's case, actually he won on this court order. In his case, he's one of the most talked about. But can he get elected in a 60% turnout race? I don't think so. That's why he's fighting this, so hard. And people like him who can maybe, they have a little captive audience that they cater to. There's food giveaways and driving to the polls and all that stuff.
So let's look at these numbers. So have there been elections in City of Miami where 15% of the people have voted?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that
14, 15.
Okay. So that means that 7% got their guy in.
Yeah.
I know that it's uncanny.
It's a few thousand votes. It's a few thousand votes elected that commission seat. And you call that representative? No, that's not really representative. That's kind of voter suppression in a different way, just by neglect. By if you don't know it's happening.
So years ago, and it was a show called Cambridge Analytica,
Yeah.
and it was on Netflix. So they were hired by different countries around the world. So one of the countries down in Africa, I don't know which one, said, "Listen, we're concerned about this new group of people overturning us." And so what Cambridge Analytica did, they were the agency, they were hired by this country. What they did is, listen, you new guys, you can start your own country. Don't vote. Create your own country. And that's how they got them to move away. And that's how the powers to be were able to do that. Instead of, and so they were working on the other side. When we watch that happen, we see that that happens all the time. Suppress the vote over here. Right?
Correct.
Suppress is the word. There's no
Suppress
question
is the
about
word.
it. And you know,
And what better way if you don't know there's an election to suppress the election?
and not too many years ago, I think there was a county ordinance, maybe it was state, that said you cannot go into a line of people waiting to get in and give them a bottle of water. Oh my goodness gracious!
It's crazy.
Right? And so what we realize now, fortunately, there's enough early voting. There's absentee ballot. There's the last day of voting. I want people to remember on election day, that is the last moment.
Yeah.
Right. And what if it rains hard that day? Right. So don't listen to the other side. If you got an absentee ballot, fill it out, mail it in. Don't get it lost with your stuff. And when early voting starts, get out and do it.
Yeah.
All right. And don't wait until the last second.
And by the way, the irony in all this is that state statute that was created to incentivize more voter participation. That's why the city of North Miami was able to do it. Coral Gables, a lot of cities throughout Florida did it. Ironically, that was increasing voter participation, empowering voters. And today's ruling basically took that away and said, no, that path is no longer available. Now you must put it always to a ballot for voters
and
to
people
vote.
go online, they can see that ruling. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's already up.
Yes.
Our last guest was read a little part of it. And so,
and again, a very politicized court, DeSantis appointees. I mean, it's very, we've entered that whole realm of
we're in 30 years, it'll be different.
I doubt it, but I hope. We can hope, right?
Right. So let's talk about, again, more activism. And we see that as election time gets closer, there can be more people that are up there, and people should not be afraid to voice their opinion in a civilized manner.
And make an appointment with the commissioner's office. Like, sit down with, because what the commissioner's office does, a lot of people don't know this either. The commissioner office cannot tell the city manager what to do or staff what to do. The charter separates our functions. But the commissioner's office has a great function, and that's to bring the residents close to the city and create solutions. So if we can bring people in and sit down, our staff is so talented. And oftentimes they'll tell me, I don't know why we don't get more interactions, with residents. So when we bring them, there are huge successes happening in our district, in Edgewater, in Coconut Grove, in many areas, because the good actors are sitting at the table trying to figure out how to fund affordable housing, improvements in parks, just a lot of other things that neighborhoods want. More safety. We're about to unveil this whole like Eastern or coastal district where there's more foot patrols and bike patrols. It's important. That's the part we're missing as a city.
I want to bring up what Miami-Dade County does in their mosquito department. They have traps all throughout the county, and when they go out all the time and they measure how many mosquitoes are in each bag, in each trap, and what type. And here's what happens: they measure, and they typically know before the calls come in. Then the calls come in. So, and it's because of the calls as well as those traps that catch them that the county knows what to do. We got a problem, let's go address it. And that's the same with the city. If people don't speak up, right, they don't know.
The same. And there's some issues that are tough issues, like the whole issue with trees and noise. They're difficult to break down because they're complicated. And, the folks in District 3 and 1 and other areas of the city aren't going to think exactly the same way than the coastal areas. There's for a lot of folks, there are a lot of things that are really important, and they may not understand it. They're thinking about food on the table. They may not, in their minds, have a way of covering a tree trimming or other expenses. And so it's important for government to step in and create the kind of support that allows them to do the right policies, which at the end of the day is grow our tree canopy, preserve our trees as much as possible, and also protect homestead property rights where those issues come up. So it's not black and white, and that's why we need people to weigh in.
Let's talk about downtown Miami. Phenomenal city, a city within a city. People who live in the suburbs go, there's so much traffic down there. But people are living there because they like what's there.
Right.
They're not living there because they hate it. Right?
Absolutely.
And my son lives downtown. I go down frequently. And the other day I was sitting on Brickell and I watched all the modes of transportation I've learned from CITT. It's mobility. How do you get around and what is there? And I started counting them. So you had the little scooters, right? Then you had people on skates. Then you had bicycles. Then you had motorcycles. Then you had the different types of buses from the city. You had moms with the carriages, and you had people walking. And I'm sitting there at sort of brunch time. I said, "This is how they do it. They elect to live in these buildings here. They come downstairs and to go do their stuff and go to work and then go back up." So, and I know a lot of people want to complain, and maybe if they can frame it a little differently about how can we live within this. We see this all the time in West Kendall. People are sort of complaining, and well, you move there, right? Figure out the county and the city is there so that we can communicate with them and at least get the attention, right, of somebody, because you never know how influenced that person might be, because maybe then they would be more receptive to hearing that type of thing. So here we are, 2025. I'm going to say it's almost over. Not quite, but pretty close. Because come Labor Day, we're going to turn around. It's going to be Thanksgiving.
You're right.
And so tell me about where's Damian in 2026?
Doing what Damian's doing in 2025. Really working hard for District 2, for our residents. There's so much that needs to happen. We have a coastal area, the sea walls, our infrastructure. I'm going to try to work with the city on bonding capacity, increasing our bonding capacity maybe by another $500 million. Why would that be important? Because these kind of projects only increase in cost every year dramatically. And we have the credit and the ability to go ahead and increase our bonding. We should address these things.
So bonding, tell people what that means.
That means that we use our credit and we have investors invest in our bonds. When we use that capital to be able to construct and invest in a lot of these infrastructure projects that we're not able to do. One of the things with the Olympia Theater is people could not believe, like, how could we not restore the Olympia Theater? Yeah, it's 35 million, but why hasn't this been done? And it's difficult to explain to the regular, resident. For me, historic preservation is incredibly important. I grew up here. Everything about history and legacy is super important. But when it comes down to when we go to the residents and we ask them to please prioritize where should our funds go in the city? By far, it's safety, it's police and fire, it's affordable housing.
Restoration.
No, it just doesn't. It doesn't. So here's a great example. I'm encouraging everyone. If you believe in historic, please come to our budget meetings in September. Please speak up before the commission. Let them know historic preservation is really, really important to me. Because otherwise, look, we have a police department headquarters that's falling apart in the middle of the city of Miami. The city of Miami has so many, because of deferred maintenance, because they haven't been doing the maintenance and because of the 40-year certifications on buildings, the pressure is phenomenal. The funds are just not there to do some of those things.
So make it clear for people, City of Miami is different than Miami-Dade County.
Yes.
Totally different governments, different elected people,
right.
Different bosses.
Right. City of Miami is a municipality, just like City of Miami Beach, just like Coral Gables. So 34 of them in Miami-Dade County. By the way, of the 34, 28 have their elections on the general cycle, right? On even years. So City of Miami is one of the ones that doesn't.
There's been a lot of reports about from the county, not the city, and they have a deficit of about $400 million. That's 400 out of $12 billion. I don't even know what percent 500 million is out of 12 point something billion. So it's not a big deal, except for if you're not getting the money that you wanted last year on charities. So
correct.
So we get that and we understand. And so
now I will say, City of Miami is in very good financial health. They have the best reserve they've ever had. They're lowering taxes. So I mean, it's a good story there, and I think we should use that with our strength right now and go ahead and invest.
Okay, so I'm not a citizen of City of Miami, but I'm a citizen of Miami-Dade County. I hope that you and your colleagues can put aside some more programs money for people with autism.
I would love to.
And I want to tell the story. A couple of years ago, guy comes in. He says, happened to be a client of ours. My son is autistic. He graduated from college. Do you have any internships? And in my mind, there was only one autistic kid that I knew, and he would just rock back and forth and say, Austin, change your diaper. So I'm imagining this. I said, he's not going to scream, is he?
Yeah.
And I'm feeling the pressure, a lot of pressure. So the dad shows me a video, and I started leaning over like that should be the redeeming thing, whether that was a good or bad thing. I said, you're saving a lot of people's lives. So the answer is yes. Internship, 3 hours a day, no, 4 hours a day, 3 days. At the end of the first day, we offered him a job. And he took, in October, he'll be here 3 years. Phenomenal to see the change in this young man and to see, and nowadays we have real conversations like this. 3 years ago, that did not exist.
Yeah.
And it really says something about the people that work here, that he was comfortable enough that he could navigate in here and have those kind of conversations. So I hope the city can do something.
The city generally does a very good job of inclusion, especially on any issue regarding diversity. We need to do better, and especially on issues we're less aware of and that are less incorporated into, daily structures. I would love to champion or to help. So anybody out there, I know Commissioner Regalado, we work very closely with Commissioner Regalado's office. So she's applied a lot of best practices in that regard.
We have a young man he has an 8-year-old non-communicative daughter. He has a show here. And then he brought in a young lady who had twins, 17 months old, perfect life. Kids were great, big job, big house. Then the autism kicked in. In 2 weeks, they stopped talking.
Wow.
The husband left, the job left. So my whole job now, Michael, is to get the kids to be able to transition to adulthood. I'm going to have Victor call you when he comes back.
Please.
You can have that conversation. I think it's important for us to do what we can do.
Would love to.
Okay.
And I'm a big supporter of, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What else we got? It's time. I know you. What else you got on your list there?
No, really, I just want people to understand their value, and it's important for them to engage in this stuff because we all lose when they don't. I mean, I gave you several examples. One of them was just about this tree thing. We, the tree ordinance was so controversial that we went outside and we found an independent, FSU has a consensus center. So we did a contract, spending about $180,000 if we do all the phases of engagement so that we engage in all of the districts. We're including FIU, University of Miami. We're going to have a resident kind of a committee with 2 people chosen from each district. Even with all of that, and we're doing that because what came out loud and clear from the vocal people that would weigh in on all of this was, we don't trust you. Y'all are liars. The city is corrupt. And,
I heard all that.
but beyond, I mean, it's a little, honestly, it's a little bit crazy. I mean, the other day we showed someone a report from an arborist, our arborist, over a tree that got struck by lightning twice and was cut down. And they said, oh, they were probably paid off. I mean, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's the level of belief on those issues is just so strong, and it hurts us in the end. I mean, people were online speaking out, like commenting negatively about this great thing we're doing to broaden the base, to bring in more, expertise to the table so that we can get it right. And I'm just like, it's amazing to me that anyone would oppose that, because it's the best sign of inclusion and trying to build consensus.
Quite frequently, evidence might change or at least mitigate them so they slow down a little bit. But I think once you have that belief system in your head, and if you were going to ask people, what do you think about most politicians? Exactly what they're going to say.
Corrupt. It's kind of like, do you remember the optical illusion of the old lady and the young lady?
Yes.
Like you look at it, if you see the old lady, it's the old lady. If you see the young lady, it's that, but they're both there. It feels like that. Like no matter what, they're seeing the old lady or the whichever one, and they can't shift from that. So maybe as part of this too, I'd ask people to be a little generous. Be a little generous. Give it a chance. Sit down, go into your commissioner's office, sit down with city staff and look at all the things. We're actually very reform-minded right now, which I think is great.
So if somebody needs to know what commissioner, they can either go online or call City Hall and say, this is where I live.
Call City Hall if you need help. Call District 2. We're happy to help and steer people to wherever they need to go. But we're very committed to engagement and to working together, improving our community. The only way that happens is if we get enough people at the table, not just the vocal ones.
Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure.
I enjoy our friendship.
Same here.
We're
Thank
going to look
you.
right in the camera over there. First of all, I want to thank Emily for producing the show.
Thank you, Emily.
A recent graduate of Florida International University. And remember, folks, take care of yourselves and your family. Give one of them a hug tonight. See you later. Bye.